Welcome back, Podheads, to another episode of Over My Dead Pod. I'm your host today, Holly Spear,
And I'm Kylie Colwell.
and today's my case. And this is the kind of case that has zero answers. And when I say zero answers, like zero answers. And it's the kind of case that will leave you questioning everything.
My favorite kind.
It's like a puzzle that doesn't have any right pieces. So we'll just get started. This story is about a woman who heads out on what should have been a peaceful summer morning hike to one of her favorite spots. Just her, nature, a friend, and a trail that she's walked many, many times before. But the hike turned out to be anything but routine. And whatever happened up on that mountain back in 2007, we still do not have answers. This is the mystery and the disappearance of Barbara Bullock. Jim Remaker and his girlfriend Donna are in town. They're in the town of Corvallis, Montana, and they're visiting Carl and Barbara Bullock. They're from California, and Donna and Carl are actually cousins. On this day, it's about 1:30 in the afternoon. It's Wednesday, July 2007, and Jim and Carl's wife Barbara left a few hours ago to go on a hike, but they still have not come back. And Donna's gut is telling her that something is off. And it's Donna's boyfriend, Jim, that hasn't come back yet. But Carl is not really concerned at all about his wife, Barbara. And that's because Barbara is an experienced hiker and she had taken Jim to show him one of her favorite local spots. It's called Bear Creek Overlook Trail. And it's really not far from Carl and Barbara's house, maybe like 20 minutes from their home. And to Carl, it's just not that big of a deal. His wife goes on this trail all the time. It's one of her favorites. She's a pretty experienced hiker. So for her to be a couple hours behind their schedule is not really a huge deal to him. It's a pretty easygoing hike. It's about 2.5 miles each way, like there and back. And it's this incredible overlook that gives you a sweeping view of like all these mountains. It's a very well maintained trail. It's clearly marked, and it's overall considered a really safe trail for the area. So, from Carl's perspective, this wasn't anything to stress over. It's a kind of hike even someone new to hiking could handle without a problem. So by this point, it's been about 4 hours since Barbara and Jim left for the hike. And to Carl, like I said, it's not a big deal. But Donna's getting really worried. She's worried at 3 hours. Now it's approaching 4 hours. She's getting even more concerned about her boyfriend. Carl's basically giving her the speech of like, just relax, everything's fine, they're going to be back soon. But Donna's not shaking this feeling. And part of why she's so on edge was because she was supposed to go with them. So it was supposed to be three of them on the hike. Carl actually was like iffy of if he was going to go in the first place. He had had a heart attack in the past. So hiking was not really like a thing that he was doing regularly at this point with his heart condition. But Donna was supposed to be on that hike. She'd intended to join them until that morning when she decided last minute to sit things out because she was suffering from a little bit of a hangover from the night before. So, 4 hours in, Donna's pretty much panicking at this point, and Carl's still pretty calm. He keeps downplaying it. Yeah, Jim's totally unfamiliar with the trail. But Barbara was with him the whole time and she knows the hike like the back of her hand. So maybe they're just moving slower than expected. It's a beautiful hike. Maybe they're just enjoying the scenery. Maybe they took a longer route. Maybe they're just admiring the views a little bit longer. Calling them, I will bring up, is not an option at this point. For one, they do not have cell service. And two, it's not really clear from anything that I could read if either of them had a cell phone with them at the time. And even if they did, like I said, where they're hiking, there's not cell service. So that's really just like not an option. 2:30 p.m. rolls around and Donna's still like begging Carl, like, hey, something's wrong. We got to do something. They should be home by now, even if they're like having car trouble because they had to drive their car to the hiking trail. They would have found a phone by now. Right before the two are about to make a move on something to do, the phone rings. And honestly, Carl gets a feeling of relief. He's like, see, like I knew they would call. Everything's fine. Like there's just some kind of like small issue. But the voice on the other end of the line wasn't Barbara and it wasn't Jim. The man on the other end of the line tells them that he is with the Forest Service and that Barbara has been reported missing. Go ahead.
So I'm assuming Jim is the one who reported her missing, but he didn't call his girlfriend or Barbara's husband?
No, he hasn't gotten in touch with him yet. Again, like maybe doesn't have a cell phone, doesn't have service, and the first people that he goes to is the Forestry Service.
Okay, that makes sense. I didn't think about him like running into them out there. I figured he had to call them. Okay.
It's Jim that reports Barbara missing. Obviously, that's when their heart drops. And without hesitation, Carl jumps in his car and starts driving straight towards the trailhead. And even as Carl is like speeding towards this mountain, there's still a part of him that's just like maybe she tripped, maybe she sprained her ankle, maybe they got separated, and she's just waiting for someone to come help her. So when he finally gets to the trailhead, obviously still no sign of Barbara, but Jim's there. And he's safe and he's not injured. Jim had reported Barbara missing, like I said, and no one could find her. And it's not that long before the whole area is just swarming with people. Investigators, the Forest Service, first responders, they all show up and they immediately start heading into the woods to begin to search for Barbara. As the search for Barbara kicks into gear, investigators start getting Jim's full account of what happened that morning on the trail. It starts, the two of them drive up to the trailhead. Jim says that when he and Barbara got there, the road leading to the usual parking area was blocked off for construction, although at that time their crew wasn't there yet. But they can't really get in this way. So they end up parking a little further down the road, but they still make it to the trailhead without any issues. They hike the trail, no problem. They make it all the way up to this beautiful overlook. And once they reach the top, they stop, they have a snack, and they just sit and take in the view. Jim estimates that they sat there for about like 20, 30, 40 minutes, just relaxing. And when it was time to head back down, Barbara took the lead. Obviously, she's familiar with the trails. She's going to be the one in the front. Now, Jim continues to tell his story and he explains that Barbara was about 20 to 30 feet ahead of him on the trail when he decided to pause for a moment, take in a view. He turned around to take in this like beautiful mountain view one last time. He says that he stood there for about 45 seconds, maybe a minute. And in that short window, in less than a minute, is when he turns back around and Barbara is just gone. At first, Jim says that he didn't panic. He figured she just didn't realize that he had stopped and she'd continued down the trail. So he picks up his pace, thinking that she'll just be waiting for him near the bottom or like a little bit ahead of him. Maybe she's at that construction area, maybe she's at the car. But when he gets there, all the way back down, nothing. No sign of Barbara anywhere. When he reaches the bottom of the trail, there's actually a Forest Service crew working near the construction area. So he goes over there and asks them if they'd seen a woman come through. They tell him no. No one matching that description had passed by. So no one's like fully panicking yet. It's still daylight. Maybe no one noticed her come down. One of the men offers to walk Jim down to his car just in case Barbara's already there waiting. But when they get there, nothing. No Barbara. With no better option, Jim decides to head back up the trail, retrace his steps, and look for her. And this is the point where the panic starts to creep in because it's not the kind of trail you just wander off. Like I said, it's well maintained, it's well markered, and he gets to the very top of the trail and goes all the way back down, still no sign of Barbara. So this is when he's panicking. He realizes she's missing. Jim continues to tell police that he didn't hear anything. No sudden movement, no fall, no cry for help, nothing. Yeah, there's like this cliff that runs alongside part of the trail, but Barbara was allegedly like very afraid of heights and she didn't really ever get close to the cliff with anyone that she hiked with. She never would get anywhere near the edge, let alone like do anything risky. She knew where to be cautious on that trail. So, for whatever reason, if she had gotten too close and slipped and fallen, Jim thinks that he would have heard something. He's pretty adamant about that. He would have heard a crash, a scream, something. But there was just silence. One minute she was there, and the next she's not. The entire time that Jim's hiking back up and down this trail, he says that he's screaming, he's calling Barbara's name, he's blowing his safety whistle, nothing. Obviously, her car is still there, so she didn't like ditch him in her car.
Are there other people like out on the trail?
Yes, we're going to get to that. There are a few people out on the trail. So once he hikes down to the very top of the trail, all the way back down, he meets the Forest Service people again, and he officially reports Barbara as missing. To your question, it doesn't seem like the trail was particularly busy that day, at least not the time that Barbara and Jim were there. The only people mentioned in any of the reports were these two guys, and Jim says that they briefly crossed paths with them. According to Jim, while he and Barbara were taking in that like overlook area, these two other hikers came by and they had just like this short, casual, normal exchange, like a hey, how's it going kind of thing. Nothing weird, nothing that raised any red flags. Jim says that the men passed by while he and Barbara were sitting there, hanging out and enjoying the view, and then they just like move along. Those are the only two people that Jim says that they ever saw the entire time that they were hiking. Obviously, you have to talk about like wildlife in the area. This is Montana. There's mountain lions, there's bears. Barbara knew that, obviously, and she did carry a gun in her backpack, but there was like a report that Barbara's husband, Carl, had said that Barbara kept this gun in the very bottom of her backpack. And it was kind of like this ongoing joke between them. Like, if you did need to use it, it's so far deep in your backpack, you're not even going to be able to get it out, kind of thing. And she had her backpack with her that day. So there's that. But she's only like 30 to 40 feet in front of Jim. He would have probably heard a gun go off. Maybe those two other guys would have heard a gun go off. There's no reports of that. So take that for what you will. And also to add to that, when searchers are searching this area, they're going like with a fine tooth comb. You would expect to see blood. You would expect to hear reports of screaming, some kind of sign. Like if it was an animal attack, Jim would have heard something, right?
And even the people like in the parking lot, because they're not that deep into the trail.
Yeah. They are super deep in the forest, and this is like a rugged terrain, but I do feel like somebody would have heard something. So, right from the start, investigators are pretty slumped. But the first and most logical step is to figure out who was actually on that trail or nearby at the time that Barbara vanished. So they start with this construction Forest Service crew that's working at that site. The crew said that they arrived that morning sometime around 9:30 or 10 a.m. They said that when they arrived, there were already two cars parked near the area. So one of the cars belonged to Jim, and the other was an older light colored SUV, possibly a Chevy Blazer. The crew couldn't say for sure, but they did note that it had Missoula County license plates. The Forest Service told investigators that after they arrived, they got to work. A little while later, two guys, probably in their early 20s, came walking down from the direction of the trailhead, just two of them and a dog. So it sounds like law enforcement believes that these are probably the same two guys that Jim and Barbara saw up at the Outlook. And the descriptions are pretty similar. They both describe them as young men, average fit, young. So the reports are kind of matching up. They're like, okay, this car must belong to these two guys that the construction workers saw, and that also Jim reports that he saw. The important part is when these guys came back down through the construction site, the workers said that nothing seemed off about them. They weren't looking stressed in any way, they weren't in any hurry. They actually said that they stopped and chatted with the crew for a little bit, just normal small talk, and then they let their dog splash around in a creek nearby. So they're kind of like totally unbothered. They're not in a hurry or under any stress. The Forestry Service said that they didn't actually see the two men get into the vehicle. They just assumed that one of the cars had belonged to them. So everything leads to the assumption that law enforcement think that this SUV was these two men. So the Forestry Service goes on to tell police that about 45 minutes later, Jim comes walking down the same blocked off road and asks if anyone had seen a woman matching Barbara's description. And the Forestry Service crew version of events line up with this. They tell him no, they haven't seen her. They then say that he walks back up the trail and then returns about an hour and a half later to say that he needs to report someone missing. Jim's story is lining up pretty well with the forestry crew. Unless police can track down those two guys with the dog, they're basically out of leads when it comes to potential witnesses. Those are the only two people confirmed to be in the area at the time. So now, with no real witnesses, all the focus shifts to the search for Barbara, which by this point is fully underway. By 5 o'clock p.m. that evening, law enforcement had already launched a full scale ground search, and over the next 48 hours, it ramped up. They began with helicopters, search dogs. They have resources and all hands on deck from law enforcement, from the surrounding cities, but they find literally nothing. No sign that Barbara was even there, no sign of injury, no piece of clothing, none of her possessions, nothing to suggest that she fell or got hurt. There's no evidence of a struggle, no evidence of an animal attack. And from the reports that I have read, search dogs never pick up a scent. Or if they did, the police have never reported it publicly. This is just like really odd to me that they can't find any trace that she was ever there.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and it might be an alien abduction at this point.
There are people that would say that they agree with you because that's one of the theories, obviously. So the theory starts floating around. What if Barbara never made it to the trail at all? Investigators begin asking themselves that exact question. Because if you really break it down, Jim is the only person that places Barbara on the trail at all. And the only way to verify his story, to know for sure that Barbara was actually up there, is to find those two men that they spoke to at the Overlook. If they really saw and interacted with Barbara, that would back Jim's story. But no one knows who those guys are, and without names, without details, tracking them down feels like a needle in a haystack. Law enforcement doesn't believe that these two men had anything to do with Barbara's disappearance. The Forest Service crew estimated that the guys came back down the trail a full 45 minutes before Jim did, and nothing about their behavior raised any red flags. They don't believe that these men have anything to do with that, and that's because the timeline would have been way too tight. Like these men would have had to go up there, do something to Barbara, hide Barbara's body, and then make it back down 45 minutes before Jim.
Yeah, the window's too tight.
And then they were able to come back and like act like everything was normal and not have any evidence of like a struggle on them at all and like talk to this forestry service people. It's just, yeah. So police are pretty sure that they don't really have anything to do with it, but they still need them. They're the missing puzzle piece to the case because they're the only people that can even place Barbara at the scene. Then the question becomes, what motive would Jim even have to do something to Barbara? No one comes forward to say that Jim had any sort of issue with Barbara, no grudge, no drama, and no reason to hurt her. I mean, we see random crimes all the time, heat of the moment, passion crimes. But one thing that's kind of hard to think about if Jim did have something to do with Barbara's disappearance is Jim doesn't know this area very well at all. And it would be really hard for him, I think, to do something to Barbara and then be able to hide her body or any trace of her at all in a place that he's completely unfamiliar with.
Yeah, and if he was planning on doing it, I mean, maybe I just hate hiking, but I would think, why would you go on the hike and then at all?
Yeah. And another thing is that his girlfriend was supposed to be with him and she decided that morning not to go. I mean, I guess that kind of plays into if this was a planned crime or not. Maybe it wasn't planned. Maybe it was like a heat of the moment kind of thing. But I just think that it would be a really perfect scenario for his girlfriend to have a hangover, him be alone with Barbara, and be able to hide her body better than the Forestry Service could find any evidence
Yeah, and no witnesses.
and zero witnesses. It's just not really adding up. But that's like the thing about this case is nothing really adds up. There's no theory that makes sense when you line it up with what we know. If we're just taking everything at face value as fact, then something's missing, a piece that hasn't been uncovered. Police don't come out and label Jim as any sort of a suspect in those early days, but they do name him as a person of interest. And not because there's any evidence pointing to him, but quite frankly, there's no one else to look at. And all the while, the search continues. And it's massive at this point. Multiple agencies have joined in. They're all working together to find Barbara. And we're talking like a massive effort here. They have the county sheriff's office, the National Guard, the Forestry Service, search and rescue teams, the Department of Homeland Security gets involved, neighbors. friends, random people of the town, total strangers. I mean, this is like a huge effort. People are showing up on their own time, organizing their own searches, doing whatever they could to find Barbara. And what is so weird is Kylie, they literally find nothing.
It has to be an alien at this point.
So weird. And here's another thing. Those two guys, this is a huge public search for this woman. Those two men that they passed in the woods that Jim said he saw and the Forestry Service said they were there, they never come forward. Not then and not since. To this very day, no one knows who these men are. The detectives have gone out of their way to say they don't consider them suspects, not even persons of interest. They just want to talk to them, get their perspective, confirm that Barbara was there, and that's all, but nothing. They don't come forward.
I could see even if you are completely innocent and there's this like mysterious disappearance and you might have been the last person to see them and they say you're not a suspect, I would still be
Like,
scared. I would still
okay.
be scared to talk to
Yeah.
them.
I could definitely see that. I think it would be something that bothered me for a really long time. Like, I didn't even just give these people a small answer, but I could see if they were skeptical and we don't know anything about these guys. Like, maybe they had histories. Maybe there was a reason that they didn't come forward. We see stuff like that a lot.
Yeah, if they had a warrant out, I wouldn't come to the police station.
Truth. People start thinking maybe these two guys are involved. But even if you think that, I think that there's still problems with that theory. And that's because I just don't see what they could have done to Barbara in that amount of time without her making a sound, without her alerting Jim, screaming, leaving nothing behind, not a shred of evidence. And like I said, the trail is up and back. It's not like there's a ton of ways to disappear unnoticed. The construction crew saw these guys on their way out, just two of them and their dog. No Barbara, no blood, no stress. It's possible that maybe they're not natives to the area. Maybe they get on a plane, they go back home, and they genuinely never hear about Barbara's disappearance. I mean, I think that that might be possible. I don't know.
I mean, 2007 was a long time ago, but like even in like today, I don't hear about every missing persons report.
Yeah. So I think that could be one of the answers of maybe why they're not coming forward. It could be like a background, some kind of history that they have that they don't want to, that they don't feel comfortable talking to police. Maybe they're not native, they went back home. I don't know. But searchers are scouring this mountain with dogs, helicopters, and even infrared lights, like at night with helicopters to try to find anybody out there. And you would have think that something would have turned up. Her scent, her belongings, something. Another theory that people have is that it could just be a random attacker out in the woods. Someone that just looks for the opportunity to kill or abduct randomly without cause or motive. We know that these people exist, although they're few and far between. They do exist. But again, and I'm going to keep coming in and saying, but even if someone like that was out there, we're back to the same question, like, where do you take her? How do you just make someone disappear without someone noticing who's 20 to 30 feet behind her?
Even if you do manage to like incapacitate her and then carry her off, not on the trail, down this mountain to like a car waiting, that seems very difficult.
And you'd have to be sitting there watching Barbara and Jim the entire time. And you'd have to just be waiting for Jim to turn around for 45 seconds and then make your move and like be ready to go, not knowing he was going to turn around. Like it just seems like such a weird happenstance opportunity that this would have to be for a random attacker to just like grab her.
Yeah, it's a little far-fetched.
And they haven't placed anyone else on the mountain. No sightings of other unknown hikers, no like man living in the woods, just these two guys with the dog. So, another theory that people have is maybe Barbara just decided to disappear and start a new life, reinvent herself somewhere new. I personally don't like this theory. It just doesn't make any sense to me. First of all, she doesn't have anything to like, quote, start a new life. She has a small, like, little hiking pack with her and the clothes she was wearing. She doesn't have her ID. She doesn't have any money. She doesn't have her passport. She doesn't have a car, a mode of transportation. She doesn't have a cell phone. Nothing that would even like support a plan to vanish and start over. And her husband says that she was a happy person. She had a happy life. There was absolutely no signs of depression or mental illness. Things were going great for her. She was happy. She'd actually picked up some new hobbies, flying and skiing. There's no infidelity in the marriage to speak of, no secret life that we know about, no behavior suggesting that she was about to walk away from her life forever.
That also has to be like the perfect scenario for Jim to just turn around and not see her.
Yeah,
Like if she was planning on leaving and making it look like she disappeared hiking, I think she would do that on like a hike alone.
exactly. And there was supposed to be two other people on this hike. So, like, she's just gonna make that her great escape and just hope they turn around for 45 seconds so she can just like run into the woods. I just think that's pretty far-fetched. And she doesn't have anything with her to do anything. Yeah, this seems like the worst possible plan to like escape what seems like a happy life. So I kind of shut this theory down immediately in my mind. And so does Carl. He's adamant that this is not something that Barbara would do. She wouldn't walk away from her life. She wouldn't walk away from her family, and especially not her pets. I get that. So to Carl, the idea that she would just up and leave is not even in his realm of possibility. Yet here we are. Barbara Bullock vanished in broad daylight on a trail that she frequented, a trail she loved, with someone that she trusted just steps behind her. No signs, no clues, no answers. She's just gone. And after all of this time in 2025, we still have not figured out how or why we have found nothing to do with Barbara. So back in 2010, there was like a moment of hope 3 years after Barbara's disappearance when a couple of mushroom pickers stumbled across skeletal remains out in the middle of the woods. And for a second, everyone's holding their breath. Could this be Barbara? But authorities quickly determined that the remains most likely belonged to a male. From everything I could find, they never actually figure out who that man was, and his identity remains unknown, which is a little odd in itself. But once again, Barbara's trail goes cold. And to this day, her case is a complete mystery. What are your thoughts, Kylie?
The only thing I can think of is that Barbara actually never went to the trail that day.
That's the only thing I can think of too. And it's so weird because Jim's not even really, he's not even really close to the family. Like he's the cousin's boyfriend.
Yeah, unless he's like some weird psychopath.
Yeah, which I guess is possible. But there's just really nothing to suggest that she was ever even there in the first place. I don't know how scent dogs don't pick her up. And keep in mind that's unreported. If they had found a scent, police don't say anything about that. We do know that they did search with scent tracing dogs, but they don't release anything to the public on if they found anything, if they didn't find anything. So maybe they did find something. I don't know. But to find literally no trace of her is just so bizarre to me. Still, the mountains are remote, they're rugged, they're unforgiving, and in a place like that, sometimes people do just disappear. It's at least possible that she just got turned around, walked in the wrong direction, and lost in the woods, never to be seen again. I don't really like this theory just because obviously I've never been on this trail, but from what I've read, it's a very easy, well-marked trail, and she's done it a million times. Maybe not a million, but you know what I mean.
She would have realized she was lost pretty early and someone would have heard her screaming.
Yeah, yeah. To just have someone disappear like 30 to 40 feet in front of you and hear nothing would be a little weird, I think. If you know anything about the disappearance of Barbara Bullock, please contact the county sheriff's office. And if by some chance you know these two identified hikers, or if these two unidentified hikers are listening to Over My Dead Pod, you can come forward because they're looking for you.
Yeah, did you see Barbara that day? Please let us know.
Yeah, please come forward. And that is the mysterious disappearance of Barbara Bullock.
If these two hikers do come forward and they say they saw Barbara like walking the trail, I think that would make it even more weird though.
Yeah, that would be, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess the only theory that I can think of, and I don't want to think it's Jim because it just doesn't make a lot of logical sense to me. But the only thing I can think of is that she was never there. And one case that I thought about while I was doing this, and I know there's lots of people that go missing in national parks and even get murdered in national parks. I don't know if you've heard about the disappearance of Dior Kuntz. Have you heard about that?
No.
So it's a 2-year-old kid. It was back in 2015, and he vanished in the Idaho forest. He was camping with his mom, dad, his great grandpa, and a friend of his grandpa, great grandpa. And at some point, the mom and dad went exploring, and he stayed behind with his great grandpa, who lost sight of him for like 1 minute, and then he disappeared without a trace, like kind of in the same way, like they didn't find clothing, they didn't find anything suggesting that it was him. But in this case, later the parents were named persons of interest, and there's people that speculate the parents had something to do with it. But that's just to say that like disappearances with no trace do happen. I don't know, I find it very creepy though. So I guess, yeah, it could happen anywhere. But if you know anything about the disappearance or you know people that were in the area at the time, you can contact their county sheriff or anybody, us, the police, what have you. All right. Well, do you want to jump into overtime?
Let's do it.
What I want to know is, you know how Louisiana was like a French territory for a while and we still have like the French lure in Louisiana?
Hmm.
What do you think the French think of Louisiana?
It's funny, I just saw a TikTok the other day of French speaking people from like other countries listening to like Cajun French,
That's
and
so great.
they just call them like rednecks and hillbillies.
Because it's like we still have so many of their traditions like meshed in with like Southern traditions.
Yeah.
But it's like a mosh posh, but there's still like this French like aspect to it. And it's just
Yeah.
I wonder if the French know about us. Do they even teach it in schools?
But the French president was in New Orleans like last year. I want to know what he thinks.
I want to know what they think about it. Like, are they like, oh, that's embarrassing? Or are they like, hey, we're with you, you know?
I think they'd be able to see like the influence. Obviously, it's a lot of French words and names of things and like the architecture,
Hmm.
but then it's kind of morphed into its own
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. It is just funny because we still like they still follow some weird French laws and they still have like French like is it parish? Is that like a French thing, right?
Yeah, instead of counties, they have parishes.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I was just I don't know, maybe I ran across something some kind of TikTok. It wasn't that exact one that you saw, but it was just like French stuff in New Orleans and I was like, I wonder what they think about us. Do we embarrass them? Probably.
One of my like guilty pleasures is watching like British and Australian people come to America for the first time and like trying our food, like Southern food, like biscuits and gravy and stuff.
Oh my gosh. What would be okay if you were trying to shock a foreign person,
Hmm.
what would you feed them?
I think I take them to like a barbecue restaurant
Mm-hmm.
and make them get like a brisket sandwich, a full rack of ribs. I want them to have like the coleslaw, the mac and
Yeah.
cheese, collard greens,
Yep.
and a biscuit and a sweet tea.
Oh, sweet tea. Yeah, they would find that very appalling, I'm sure, the sweet tea part.
They would. It
I feel
has
like
that.
mine would be fried chicken if I was going to impress somebody. Like, like here's what you could be eating, instead of like beans on toast, like you could have that.
Hmm.
But if I wanted to really shock them, I think I would, like disgust them. I think I would feed them chocolate gravy, like biscuits and chocolate gravy.
Yeah, I think they would judge us for that one.
For sure. Trying to think of like other very appalling like foods that we have.
Fried frog legs,
Mm,
crawfish.
Velveeta cheese. It's not even
Oh,
refrigerated. You just go pick it up off the shelf.
cheese whiz.
Cheese whiz, that's a good one.
Any of the cereals that we have. I guess anything with like red dye 40 in it.
Hot Cheetos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be a must.
Oh, and I give them like a buzz ball for dessert.
An OG Four Loco.
Oh, yes, the original with the caffeine in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Ugh.
The heart stopper.
Okay, so wait, what was your like go-to drink when you were like underage high school? Like, I'm so cool drinking this.
Mike's Hard Lemonade.
Oh, that
Easy.
was a good one.
Yeah, yeah. There was a time for that one, for sure.
Yes. I was like the Malibu coconut rum.
What was the vodka that was just like completely foul, but they had so many flavors? Burnett's.
Oh,
That was a fan favorite in my high school was a Burnett's bottle. Blech.
I remember going to someone's apartment in college and they were drinking Burnett's, and I was like, I thought we were better than this.
Yeah.
We're 18 now. What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that Burnett's vodka has to continue just based off of underage kids buying it. Like, I think that is their sole customer. It has to be.
Yeah, what is that other one that's really bad?
Svedka, I thought when I upgraded from Burnett's to Svedka that I was like really stepping up in the world, you know?
Oh, college, I'd get the strawberry lemonade vodka
Me too.
in the
Mixed
big pitcher with the
juice.
lemonade. Yep.
Yes. I think I know the vodka you're talking about that is like really super cheap and that people used to get all the time.
Okay, I figured it out.
What?
I phoned a friend. And apparently it's not vodka, Everclear.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Everclear. Ugh. That just those words bring back.
Oh, my dad said it's called pure grain alcohol. I guess they can't even like categorize it as vodka.
It's like a rubbing. You can also use it as a rubbing alcohol.
Yeah, you can take your nail polish off with it, strip
Ugh.
some paint off a door.
We were so foul as children.
I remember in high school was when that like Angry Orchard like apple cider beer whatever came out. And I was like,
Yup.
I'm a beer drinker, guys.
Yeah. I'm cool like that.
Oh,
Oh yeah, I remember that stuff.
oh, and strawberries.
Oh my gosh. I would just get one of the tall boys of a strawberryta because when that came through, I was like, oh, heck yes, you know?
Yeah.
I'd be out in some field Friday night. Thought I was upstairs sleeping, I'm sure, out
Uh,
under somebody's truck.
the worst hangover, I'm sure.
Oh, I can't, I mean, I can't imagine, but I don't remember it. Thank God. Things aren't the same as they used to be. The world's quite different now.
Yeah, we can drink better now.
Yeah, we have like espresso martinis. I'm still not really a martini girl, but maybe I'll try again. I don't know. You're a martini girl.
I love a good martini. Puts me right to sleep. I'm like an old housewife.
Gotta have your martini. I like wine. You know, I love a red wine.
Hmm.
I just can't, I don't know. Maybe I'll acquire the taste of a martini. It just seems so strong to me.
Okay, New Year's resolution in June. You drink martinis. I gotta learn how to drink red wine because I can't be drinking Riesling at every meal at
Yeah.
dinner.
Yeah. See, this seems like a alternative path to a New Year's resolution. Like this doesn't seem like everybody else's New Year's resolution that's like I want to cut back on drinking. Kylie and I are like we want to drink new things. We want to acquire new bad habits.
No, we just want to expand our palate.
Oh, I like that much better.
Next episode will be live in Sonoma at a wine tasting.
Trying to refine Kylie's palate.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I'm gonna go try to make a martini. And with that, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Over My Dead Pod. If you want even more true crime, you can go to our Apple podcast, you can go to our Spotify, you can go to our website, you can go to our Instagram, and you can follow us on all of those things. We would love it. And we love you. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.